It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently. Warren Buffett. Welcome to the Guyana Dialogue. I'm your host, Shamiza Ali. We do apologize for the late start. We were having some technical difficulties. Our topic tonight is how a leading business executive and vice president of GMSA views Guyana's development and the role in which his companies play in the process. The Guyana Dialogue is being sponsored by a coordinating council of Guyanese based in the US, UK, Canada, the Caribbean, and Guyana. Funding support is by well known philanthropist Dave Narayan from Dave West Indian Imports. Please welcome my moderator for tonight, Dr. Tara Singh, who is a distinguished political and social scientist.
Thank you very much, Shamiza, and welcome to your listeners.
Good
Welcome to
evening,
the
Dr. Tara.
panelists and our guests.
Our panelists are Dr. Muniram Budu, who is a professor in civil and architectural engineering and engineering mechanics.
Hello, Samija and Tara.
Uh,
Welcome. Our other panelist is Dr. Gangaram Das, who is a professor at Lincoln University. They have all worked in Guyana. Our guest tonight is the managing director of Durable Wood Products and Duravilla Homes Guyana Inc. Please welcome Mr. Rafeek Khan.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Tara, please continue.
Thank you very much, Shamiza. Welcome, Mr. Khan. I've been trying to get you for some while. I know you're very busy with your business. And also welcome to the panelists, Professor Muniram Budu, who is an engineer and architect by profession. He was a professor at the University in Arizona. He had traveled extensively in the world giving lectures and written several articles on engineering and architecture. And we have Dr. Ganga Ramdas, who is the head of the Department of Economics and International Relations at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. Prior to migrating to the United States, he was the head of a unit at the Bank of Guyana. So welcome to all. And Mr. Khan is well known in the business circles in Guyana. He was also the former president of the Guyana Manufacturing Services Association. I believe, I don't know if you were ever involved in the private sector commission as a chairman. I'm not sure about that. But before I start, I just want to say that in the job fair that was held in New York, your booth was one of the busiest. You have a lot of people interested in what you're doing. Perhaps you can tell us a little about that, then we'll move on to the subject proper. Because your booth and another booth was the two busiest I observed. So you can please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity. And to you, Dr. Singh, and the panelists and all that are here and make this event, this dialogue possible, and to the sponsors. The event in New York was one of a kind, as it was the first time happening, and that is where there was a job fair that invited people from New York, companies from New York, to not just learn about businesses in Guyana, but what are the job opportunities. It was well attended, and I foresee that that event would have allowed companies to possibly have some level of confidence in applying for jobs in Guyana. And there's a lot of jobs opening. It's not just what you may hear sometimes, that there's not enough pay in terms of job opening in Guyana, because we're importing skills from every country in the world, for every region in the world, from Asia, Europe, uh, from the Pacific Islands, and so on. There are skills that are coming into Guyana, especially technical skills, um, IT skills, mechanical skills. So we have had a major shortage, not just in my sector, but almost every sector of the economy. And thank you again for that, and for attending it. And I look forward to being part of tonight's show.
Mm. All right, thank you very much. Now, if you can give us a general overview of how you think the country is moving in terms of excuse me, in terms of development.
See, as we all know, Guyana has been rapidly developing. What I'll try to help the viewers understand is perhaps from my perspective what I see a bit more unique. And Guyana is redefining itself in every aspect. The climate is very attractive to the entire world. And what we see as Guyanese living in Guyana and even abroad, we are not seeing what those are seeing from the international community. And I would like to encourage the viewers, the listeners, to at least remove your blinders and look at Guyana from a totally different perspective. As Guyana is opening up its gateway to Brazil, to Suriname, through the Caribbean, into the rest of the world, Guyana is not just oil and gas. Guyana's market opportunities are vast, and I'll talk more about that during the show, during the event here tonight. But the idea here is that Guyana's development in every aspect possible is advancing. I'll touch base on a few of them. This most recently, you probably heard about the single window ease of doing business. Yes, it's sometimes a bit challenging for some in terms of how do you access information online and get your business going online, especially when you're used to North American, European standards of setting up an account or starting a business. But ease of doing business has really advanced in many areas. You can go online right now and get a lot done. You can pay bills, you can do banking, you can recently the single window for housing. You can apply for a home and you can land and you can go ahead and get status checked throughout the process. The export process through GRA, there's a single window where you can import and export and do all of that online. Actually, that is happening online before single window came up for recently for central housing planning. Reformations would have happened to allow e-commerce to happen in Guyana. Individuals can actually have more protection in their business due to recent legislation and more things that are coming on board. The digital advancement, I've seen companies who are actually moving so fast ahead in terms of implementing technology in their businesses that I'm actually having to go learn to catch up with some of those companies. The energy, if you fly over the skies of Guyana, you will see solar panels throughout many places in the hinterland and even in the city of Georgetown. So while we're talking about other alternative energies such as gas to shore and so on, solar panel has been advancing in many individual residential homes and businesses. Deepwater Harbor is coming. In hinterland infrastructure development, you've been hearing about that, what is happening, and you'll learn a bit more later on how that will be helping my business and many other businesses more in with the hinterland development. Um, Access to internet is happening at a faster speed, fiber optics, and even more affordable. The Also, the hospitality industry has been advancing and tourism. You're seeing more hotels and built and being launched. The tourism sector is growing. Many people are out there just looking to learn more about Guyana than before. The healthcare sector, of course, has been advancing and with telemedicine and many others. There's so many regional hospitals that are now preparing to open new hospitals. Construction, I don't have to tell you, but construction is actually just booming in every area of the country, from residential to commercial, bridges, ports, roads, you name it. And we have actually attracted in the country investors from all parts of the developed world into Guyana. Um, not just China and India. We have seen investors from Europe into Guyana and from Latin America, South America, participating in Guyana's infrastructure construction projects in the country. The We've even seen access to flights. You know, you can get to Guyana easier than before. Most of the airlines, even though there are more flights, I've seen at least 30% more flights in the last year. And even so, seeing flights are still booked. The airport accessibility is much easier. So advancement is happening, development is happening. We as private sector, we need to keep up with that pace, because sometimes we hear the government is moving at the lightning pace, and sometimes private sector are a bit lagging in catching up. So I'm here to focus a little bit more on how we are seeing as a company, and in my sector especially, keeping up with the development and the expansion of the country. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. Before I pass you on to the other two panelists, I just want to ask you one final. Since you are very much involved in the manufacturing sector primarily, and you're the past president and the current vice president, what do you think about the government gas ashore project, where the cost for electricity to the government will work out to 4 cents per kilowatt? Right now, the government is paying 22 cents per kilowatt. There's a subsidized cost. The real cost is 30 cents. And the government estimated that consumers will pay half that price, just about 11 cents per kilowatt, which can be a massive savings. They estimate around 100 million US per year they will save. What do you think about that? They're also doing a mix thing with solar and wind power, etc. So how do you see that?
Yes, gas to shore is definitely going to help, and you know, one of the biggest hindrance to business development and actually competitiveness in Guyana has been the cost of energy. The You said 4 cents per kilowatt. Even if it's going to be half of what you're paying now, you're going to see a tremendous savings in the country. And many businesses are gearing up because in my sector, we have managed to grow despite the high energy cost and much less the savings that's going to come. Now, gas to shore, I would encourage businesses such as myself and others is to prepare to see how you can access and convert your existing businesses to utilize the gas to shore that is coming. But apart from that, you have other alternative energy. You mentioned solar, you mentioned renewable energies, recycling, and so on. How could we take our waste that we have now and put it into the grid or put it into gasification process and help get other source of energy? So you have a wide variety of opportunities I see coming, not just gas ashore, but gas ashore is going to be the ultimate where energy cost is going to be truly realized. And that's when you're going to see manufacturing is going to boost at a more exponential rate. Um, Sitting at the VP as at GMSA, Guyana Manufacturing Services Association, our goal and our objective has always been to drive and improve and have more manufacturing in the country. We have natural resources in every aspect, as you know, and not just every aspect. We have natural resources in the highest quality and most unique in the country. I said recently at another forum that even our oil that's been discovered in years ago, recently, is actually one of the best quality. Our sand is among the best quality, if not the best quality in the world. Our gold is the best quality, is one of the highest quality gold. Our timber is among the highest quality and unique. Many of you don't or may not know that green heart only grows in Guyana. You may have a few trees in Suriname, but green heart is indigenous to Guyana. Um, you have quarry happening in many areas. You have unique agriculture, aquaculture. So in manufacturing, for manufacturing, this is how you're going to see the country growing through developing new industries, developing the non-oil sector to try to have more and more exports out of the country than imports, because that is what you're going to see where businesses are really going to be profiting when we are tapping into the regional market. We don't have to ship all the way to Europe or Asia to be able to realize the potentials right within the region, within the Caribbean. If you go among and look at any country in the Caribbean, you're going to see the imports that are happening. Those are markets for us. So, sitting at the helm of the GMSA, my objective is to always try to see how we can get business being ready, and how we at the GMSA can also be an advocate for businesses who are having challenges, understanding how they can take advantage of the opportunities and fiscal incentives and so on. I also am part of the Private Sector Commission. I was the previous vice chairman of the Private Sector Commission. So, as the umbrella body of the country, and at both organizations, we are constantly engaging and working with government to see how businesses can become more and more effective and efficient and making use of the opportunities that exist today. So thanks for that question.
Dr. Tara? Dr. Tara, please unmute. All right. Dr. Ganga, you can go ahead with your question.
Hello, Rafeek. It's nice to have you on this program at this time. I'm very impressed with your two companies, and also the overview that you gave appears to be community focused. So let's start with the company's wood products and the Duravilla homes. Tell us something about those products and the homes and the markets that you're targeting.
Yes, in the past 22 years, the company started off as Durable Wood Products in Guyana, pretty much just trading timber, buying lumber from Guyana and exporting it to various parts of the world. As a matter of fact, New York was one of our first destination in actually shipping our timber to. We worked with the City of New York, the Department of Transportation, and they're constantly using Guyana's timber. Municipalities in Europe, of course, uses the Middle East, Dubai, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, because Guyana's timber has been known to be some of the most durable timber, especially greenheart, used in hydraulic and engineering. So durable wood products has been penetrating and expanding the market when it comes to utilizing more of our timber species. As a matter of fact, the Brooklyn Bridge, many may not know that the Brooklyn Bridge, the pedestrian bridge in the Brooklyn, used our wood, which we shipped to New York to the DOT. The Staten Island Ferry, for example, was constructed using greenheart. Coney Island Boardwalk, and so on. So there's a vast variety of products. But what durable wood products would have done is not just rely on the industrial projects or products. Durable wood products recognize that if we just sit and wait for a government to from another country, who's the consumer and the largest consumer for our commodities, our timber commodities especially, we're not going to be tapping into a more value-added market. And what I mean by that, to do value addition, we want to not just sell our timber for railroad ties or hydraulic and engineer. We can take that same natural resource that God has blessed us with, and abundant, I must say, and well sustainably harvested in Guyana, and add more value to it. So, for example, a truckload of rough sawn lumber exported from Guyana, or container load, may value about 20,000 US dollars. But can you imagine if I were to take that same container load of lumber, rough sawn timber, and convert it to decking, siding, flooring, just basic products? You're not talking about no innovative products. And we'll get to Duravilla in a moment, which is innovative. But you're talking about commodities that are traded from Brazil and Indonesia, Malaysia, and other countries. They also have a tropical forest. So Guyana is positioned to export its products regionally and internationally. So durable products would have seized that opportunity. I would say about 90% of our market is export. I'm not saying that proudly because we do need to service the local market, and the local market is now growing and accepting more of the products that we're producing. So what we would have done in the last 10 years, we've been trying to promote more wooden homes, homes that many of us, our grandparents, grew up using greenheart and many other hardwoods, Wallaba, Mora, and so on, Kabakali. These are species that we may be familiar with. Purple Heart, of course. So why are we seeing less of these wood being used? It's because that the companies or many small operators have not been curing and dressing the timber and seasoning and drying it for the new homeowners to appreciate and and to last long. So durable wood products, what we would have done in the last 10 years, we started this effort in the last 10 years, and only within the last 2 years, we saw a major um, takeoff in our business that we were able to flat pack our lumber in a container, making a modular timber home, a prefab home, put two homes in the container, 600 square feet, two bedroom, and ship it to any destination in the world. We have recently been shipping homes to Barbados, St. Vincent. We're preparing to ship homes to Grenada, Trinidad. But right there, regionally, locally in Guyana, we're preparing to expand our business. Some of you may have heard of the eco lodges in Diamond. We recently constructed the eco lodges there on the Duravilla homes. So the country is growing, but at the same time, our businesses are growing, and our business is definitely growing. As a matter of fact, we are looking to reposition our business to actually cater more on the domestic market and the regional market within the Caribbean. So it's been a delightful journey, a journey that I must say has been challenging but rewarding. And we have not yet gotten to the point where we need to be. As a company, we're growing. We have to advance in technology and many areas that I'll talk more about during the program. But definitely, this is where our company we have been shining, and we've been looking for partners and people to join us. And I'll explain a little bit more about that as we go along through the program. So thank you for that question.
Yes, so exports is part of the engine of economic growth. But what I'd like you to address is the growth of our communities and their locations, and how your company can participate in the development of communities in Rumfeld, Eastern West Rumfeld. You remember Natram and Sons and Khan and Daughters and all those others who came before. They had a big role in developing East and West Rumfeld homes. Also,
Mhm.
recently, I even had one of my neighbors who went back to Grove. Now, Grove had a huge population of sugar workers with high expectations. They're all now in Bronx and Queens and so forth. But the land there to build the homes in, we're not sure, I'm not sure how the communities are being built in Grove, and if there are new communities like West Coast. I don't have enough information. I know the old polders, and so Dr. Tara is from there. They were successful. So those communities, the old fashioned type of communities, they are not out of style. They're still sustainable, and people depend. And we look forward to visit relatives and friends there. So, how do you build communities in terms of contributing to economic development?
Uh, I look at that question in two aspects: building communities through our business and and secondly through our products. But let me talk first about how do we build it through our business. As you may know, in the forestry sector, we our operations are not set up in the city. It's set up at remote locations. We are located in Yarracabra of the Linden Suzac Highway and on inland Atlantic Canaan. But what we are doing, we are creating employment through the entire value stream because we have a well integrated business from logging to sawmilling to manufacturing, processing, and then to manufacturing. So through the entire value chain, we are employing folks of all different skill sets and building communities. I see as far as empowering people to help understand the trade, understand our business, and creating the employment. We have about 110 employees that work for the company. 40% are women. And you'd be surprised to see how now you're having women who are actually interested in working in the wood industry and actually very good at it, understanding quality and grading and so on. So building communities in the aspect of using the business, giving back to the community by creating employment, and then you have this secondary employment that comes from that because of logistics, transportation, and so on. The forestry sector employs about 24,000 persons in Guyana. That is growing every year because of more diversified types of products and services that the forestry sector offers. So building communities in that way. Now, building communities and using our products, I would say, is a challenge now. Why? Because many new construction, they're using concrete, they're using steel. We have to re-educate and help the potential homeowners understand that timber has last for over 100 years, and buildings are still standing in Guyana. It is sustainable, it is renewable, it is energy efficient in all aspects if built correctly and properly. So our objective is to eventually start taking on contracts or encouraging those who own land who would like to build communities or let's say housing developments that are happening within the urban areas and so on, is to talk to us and see how we can make it possible that you can at least have a hybrid approach, maybe combining concrete and timber or cement board and timber. And that's what we do. So we want to look at building communities by having a paradigm shift in the way we do homes and build homes today. 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, yes, you would see more wooden homes, but today you're seeing less. We want to bring back that level of construction in Guyana by building communities utilizing wood. So it's a journey that we're on, and we're looking forward to encouraging the listeners here and those who are overseas. If you're going to look at migrating to Guyana or getting a second home in Guyana or first home, let's talk about utilizing wood, not just from our companies, but any company who are seeking to build using timber in a very quality and durable way.
You made an important point. You're targeting those who own land, and that complements the government's land distribution policy. So that's very good. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Gangaramdas. We'll now move on to Professor Budu.
Mr. Khan, what is the percentage of wooden houses being constructed in Guyana?
So the construction of homes in Guyana, if you were to look at purely residential construction, and the homes that the government is actually, as you saw, the 10,000 lots that are being given out. If we can talk about that from low income, moderate, and high income, that's the three categories. Last year, I believe about 1,400 homes or so were built within those categories, 1,200 to 1,400 homes. So within those, I would say maybe 90% are actually built using concrete and 10% timber. This year, we hope to make a dent into that. I'm hoping that this year we can do about 200 to 300 homes in Guyana. Well, I said this year, over the next 12 months, to be able to do that. So there are not many homes that are using timber. Most of the homes that are using timber are many renovated homes. Those that are renovating their existing wooden home, and those who are looking to maybe put a second story on their concrete existing structure.
Mm. Why do you think this is so? I mean, they're using concrete rather than wood. Because, I when I was in Guyana, I did a lot of research on timber, especially the structural use of lesser known species, not greenheart, right?
Mhm.
For use in buildings, office buildings, and residential construction. And if you look at countries such as Denmark, it has less than 50% of the land area is forest, but yet the number one building material is wood. Same thing with Sweden, right? They use wood. Why is Guyana fixated on using concrete when we don't have cement, right? We only have sand.
Mhm.
Aggregates we have to get from the interior,
Mhm.
right? And then timber is much more, it has a lot of advantage in terms of low carbon emission and so on, right? Durability and so on. So why do you think this is happening in Guyana?
There's a couple of reasons. I think one of the primary reasons is education. Many persons think that a wood home would not stand up to the elements. You know, we sell, and I'm not saying this proudly, but we sell our timber to the rich and the famous across the globe.
Mhm.
However, I find that persons may think that if you have a wood house, it might be a cheap house.
Mhm.
It's actually a premium house. And then some people may think wood is more expensive. But if you were to carefully look at the value of timber, and if we're to use more of these timber in the right way in Guyana, you will be seeing and getting more buy-in. So education wise, we need to educate the consumer. You mentioned lesser used species. There are many lesser used species that will complement not just the exterior of the home, but the interior of the home. What are you using? Flooring, paneling, ceiling, and so on, doors. So one is education. We need to re-educate or inform our new homeowners to consider timber. And I'm telling you, you can I would say take a hammer and hit the concrete wall, a hollow block wall, and it will go in. It wouldn't do that for our green heart, purple heart, more or some other hardwood homes. So it's all about the thinking. Now, the second reason is you've had companies, unfortunately, who did not keep up with the standards of curing the wood, having seasoned timber to go into the right application. So in everything that you do, quality, it comes back to quality. Recently, you've probably heard of the Made in Guyana brand, and if so, our company has signed on to that. That we want to adhere to standards and encourage other companies to adhere to standards. Don't compromise, not because the consumer wants it at a cheaper price. That means you're going to sell a door or flooring that is not properly cured. So there's a constant cry for quality building materials in Guyana, especially wood.
Now,
And
let me
yeah,
ask you: do you use codes and standards in Guyana? And if so, what are these standards and codes?
yes, there's a building code, but there's also a timber code through the Guyana Forestry Commission.
Mhm.
And let's say it is a rough sawn lumber, it is GRO4
Mhm.
prime or select.
Mhm.
So that's just an example. All of the products that are actually exported out of the country, they have to go through a timber grading certificate, get a timber grading certificate and
Mhm.
compliance. Now,
Mhm.
locally in Guyana, though, comes back to enforcement. So the government, they have codes. The building department, they have codes. The question would be, are we enforcing the codes? When you go to a lumber yard, for example, and you buy a 1x4 or 1x6, the average homeowner may not know what's a knot, what's sap, what's rent,
Mhm.
what's they may not even check the thickness of the wood. So what we want to do is not just rely on the government or enforcement agencies to set the standards. We want the consumer to be able to understand when you're buying a material, be educated, be informed, and make sure that your contractors are not compromising with the quality of the wood that they're buying. If you buy a piece of pine in the US, pine lumber, it will be marked and stamped number one, number two, or three grade. Guyana, we have A, B, and C grade. So let's not compromise. So I would say we need to be educated more. We need to educate our consumer. We need to have more enforcement at the lumber yards to ensure that if they're cutting a 1x6 and you go measure that wood, it's not 7/8, it's actually 1 inch. So enforcement and education is critical. And then having more procurement policies in place, and I believe it's happening, that the building code will support more lesser use species that you're seeing presently. But then if we have that in the Procurement Act, then are companies capable of scaling up quick enough to producing the timber to cater for these buildings, as basic as schools? We're not even seeing companies capable of making basic furniture for the schools. We're having to import those because we want to have more manufacturing happening in country for basic products, whether it's bed, tables, chairs, and of course, housing.
Now, I understand that these building codes you have are outdated. I know the minister was here for housing, and I spoke to her about this. So that needs to be there, and I need to have standards, and these must be Guyanese standards and Guyanese codes of practice. Right now, let me switch gear to you. Before you've been in business since 1998, correct?
Yes.
In Guyana. So you have experiences with three governments: the PPPC, APNU, AFC, and now the PPCCA. How easy is it to do business in Guyana under this government?
That may or may not be a fair question, but I must say, over the years, our company has managed with both governments in growing. For this government, though, what I have seen, what's a bit uniquely different, is that the government of Guyana puts on a promotional aspect to helping companies grow. Our president, Dr. Irfan Ali, he goes out and he talks about businesses in Guyana. As a matter of fact, he markets businesses so much so that we are not even ready for the demand when companies call us, many companies. And I'm guilty of that as well, because our president and our government and through Go Invest and the various agencies, Ministry of Natural Resource, our Minister Vikram, and Dr. Peter Ramsarup, these are all ambassadors for our businesses in Guyana. So the trade events that has been happening in the various regions of the world, we are getting more and more buy-in, because what I encourage companies to do is to join in, because naturally the government, when they go on a mission, they create attention. There's attention. We need to seize the opportunity during those events and piggyback on the success that the government is actually laying behind a foundation for us. So the government is becoming more and more a facilitator for businesses and providing an opportunity. Now, the other area I've seen recently that has been, I would say, very, very helpful to our business and our business here presently, is that the fiscal incentives. Now, for the forestry sector, we needed to have all types of fiscal incentive to help us become competitive and enter into new markets. Budget 2025 is preparing to come to the next initiative here for that budget, and we have to submit what is it that we want for 2025. And I must say that the list of our submissions are getting smaller and smaller. I remember 5 years ago at the GMSA, and even most recently, even 2.5, 3 years ago, when we had to make a submission for fiscal incentive, we had pages and pages and pages. Now we have to think hard what to put on the document to request fiscal incentive. VAT has been removed from wood, from lumber. All taxes has been removed for when it comes to input of manufacturing. You can get a waiver for taxes, for duties for heavy equipment, machinery, sawmilling, and so on for my sector. So, and if you don't have it, you can actually make sure your businesses are registered to take advantage of those incentives. In terms of the infrastructure, what has happened for this government, and I must say it's been very strategic because many companies don't realize that businesses like our business has paid the price for businesses that are coming in now. We have seen and experienced the blunt of high costs of transportation. As much as 75% of the cost of moving our goods from the forest to our manufacturing facility has been used to be for trucking cost. Now we're seeing that it's coming down to about 50%. We have a far way to go, but there's been a strategic plan, and as you may have heard in the last budget, that infrastructure work, whether it's bridges, whether it's roads from the hinterlands, and even through the cities, we are having and seeing a tremendous savings now in our business. So this government would have enabled businesses to become a bit more confident. We have some other things to do, such as impacting the energy costs, and that is a challenge. And how do we even bring more skills and get more skills into the country? But speaking of skills, you can have any person from any country outside of Guyana come to Guyana, and they can get a visa to do business in Guyana, to set up shop. Before, that was difficult in terms of getting work permits and so on. But now, and there was a quota before. Now we in the forestry sector, especially, we have employees from Indonesia, the Philippines, who are actually working in Guyana and helping our companies meet the skills gap. So there are many ways in which I see the government has actually helped our businesses, and access to finance, which I can talk about if you would permit me. But that is where we want to see more help. Recently, for the forestry sector, we've had what you call the revolving fund. This is the fund that the government put in 1/3, and the bank put in 2/3, Demerara Bank, and $950 million in terms of getting access to capital for small businesses to apply for loans that is about 3 to 4% interest rate. So we want to see more of that. We want to see more of small business lending. We want to see more banks coming to Guyana and opening up doors to help businesses get opportunities to non-traditional lending. We've seen collateral. You can actually use movable assets as collateral now. You can use lease property as collateral now to get loans from the bank. We've seen interest rate come down, especially in the housing sector. My goodness, interest rate for a house now is as low as 3.5 to 4%. Some of if you're buying a more expensive home, it's about 6%, 7, 8%. Business loans, I'm seeing between 9 to 10%. So we've seen a tremendous change and happening to enable businesses to become more competitive. Thank you.
Now, you said there are a lot of shortage of skill, and you hired people from abroad. The diaspora has many of the needed skills in Guyana. How do you think the government and private sector make use of the diaspora? Not necessarily that they have to come home, because with today's technology, you can work from anywhere, right? Do you have any ideas how your as a private sector and the government can make use of the diaspora?
Absolutely. One of the disadvantages that we have at the moment for the diaspora living, going to Guyana to set up businesses is the cost of getting of housing and accommodation, especially with the rise of real estate costs and so on. But you mentioned something important. Me, for example, I'm from the diaspora. I'm back and forth between the U.S. and Guyana, and since 20 years ago, I was operating remotely using Skype. Now Skype is not as popular anymore. We use Zoom, we use WhatsApp, and so on. I'm still in tune with my business regardless of where I am in the world. Now the diaspora can actually take advantage of business opportunities by offering a lot of services, marketing service, digital services, website services. A lot of consultancy studies could be happening. COVID would have taught us a very important lesson, how we can work remotely. So I would like to encourage those from the diaspora, regardless of the sector that you have interest with, is to maybe even reach out to the GMSA and the Private Sector Commission and see how you can network with some companies. We have 8 subsectors within the GMSA, and I believe any business that you're doing, you can connect with a business to possibly offer your service. And you can start off part time, it doesn't have to be full time. You can start scaling up your business and make some visits to Guyana, set or even partner. You know, sometimes we feel that we need to do it alone. We have this scarcity mentality, which I would like to recommend that we change, that we have to do it alone, that we don't need competition is healthy, and we need to have more an abundance thinking mentality. Don't look at each other as a competition because the market is so huge, the opportunities are so huge, and the available services in Guyana and manufacturing in Guyana at the moment is very limited. So I would like to encourage the diaspora to be confident, to be bold. If you're gifted and you're good at something, try and see how you can connect that. Invest some money in starting somewhere, whether you partner with a business in Guyana, or whether you have some type of service that you can offer them at a fair rate, you know, and the price that are being offered right now for many of our products is actually comparable to the developed countries. Some of these products are costing just as the same as it is in the US. So I would like to suggest that every aspect of our sectors that are developing and advancing, that the diaspora can play a role if they connect themselves properly.
Now, how can they connect to your organization? Is it GMSA?
So the Guyana Manufacturing Services Association, you type gmsa.org, and you can actually go on the website and look at all the subsectors and connect through what you call, we have subsector chairs in every sector, whether it's ICT, pharmaceutical, chemicals, construction and engineering, agro processing. You know, if you want to make and manufacture a product, you know, so many of our food products are being imported. Why not look at maybe producing a food product in Guyana? So if you want to learn more about some of our bona fide, well-established businesses, you can contact us at the Guyana Manufacturing Services Association and have some business to business B2B engagement where we can set up. You don't have to even fly to Guyana. If you present your portfolio or your business pitch to us, you can contact the Guyana Manufacturing Services desk. We have a secretariat of about 5 persons, well set up. We have a full desk to help companies connect with businesses in Guyana who are established, who are seeking partners, or who are seeking to grow.
Thank you. Tara, I think our time for question is now.
Dr. Tara, please unmute.
Go ahead, Shariza.
Dr. Tara, we can't hear you.
I don't know why.
Go ahead. We can hear
Are
you
you
now.
hearing?
Yes, please
Yeah,
go
Dr.
ahead.
Ganga.
Oh yes, I'd like to continue with the new house lot holders, the new house lot owners, right? Uh, how do you see the cost of 100% wooden building for those guys versus, let's say, a hybrid or 100% concrete? Give us some ideas about the costs.
Dr. Tara, I thank you for that question. It's important. Right now, I'm going to go to the basic, the most affordable homes in Guyana that the government is building and selling back to the consumer. Of course, the government has been, in a great way, subsidizing the cost of the land. When an individual buy a house, they really have equity already with the land. Now, the house market right now, the smallest, let's say 600 square feet, two-bedroom house, concrete is about $6.5 million or $6 million. Let's say 30,000 US dollars. For a wooden home, it's going to be a bit more expensive, but what do you get in return for that? Or let's say it's a hybrid house. Our home is going to cost about turnkey starting from $40,000. That same house, 600 square feet, two bedroom, we can deliver that exact house for about $40,000 US. If it is done in a larger scale, more economies of scale, let's say we're doing more than 10 or let's say even 100 homes in a community, we can bring that number down. And if we were to offer the consumer, if they pick some of our models and not get too crazy with the designs and doing too much modification, we can even scale the numbers and become more attractive with our pricing. But we're about $40,000 starting, and then it goes to about $50,000, $60,000. That same home that you're getting in Guyana, we sell that same home turnkey in Barbados, St. Vincent, for about 80,000, 90,000 US dollars turnkey. But so in turnkey in Guyana, comparing to concrete, it is more expensive, but not that more expensive for what you'll be getting in return.
So, I had built a house, wooden, and I got my supplies directly from outside of High Street by Central Garage. The trucks lined up there with Kabakali, and I bought at wholesale prices. So, sawmill to consumer. Can we have that as part of the supply chain for the individual home builder to use wholesale prices as well? That's one of the avenues that we could facilitate them with. What do you say about that?
Yes, as a matter of fact, everywhere you have a large housing development, there are lumber yards, sawmills, and lumber yards are opening up throughout the country. There's a lot of sawmills, but it's important that we look at decentralizing manufacturing. Um, the more we concentrate our supply of our materials in the city, the more difficult it becomes in terms of growing the business. So within the city, like your experience, that will be most likely a a lumber yard buying from a sawmiller, and then that sawmiller, most times they're located in Berbice, Essequibo, Demerara, those regions. So what I would like to do is encourage more lumber yards to be complying with the standards for building quality, because you would have purchased that lumber, let's say, in the city, and maybe your contractor, you would have been more familiar with the quality of wood. But what we want to do is encourage more enforcement with regards to quality, because you're going to be paying about 10 to 15% more if you buy it from a lumber yard because of convenience. But you can very well call up any major sawmiller and buy directly from them, assuming that you're buying, let's say, at least 2 to 3 thousand board feet of lumber to make your transportation costs beneficial. So the opportunity is there. Most contractors know how they can buy from sawmillers directly in from Linden to across the East Coast, the East Bank, and even Parika. So the accessibility is there, but the challenge we find is the availability. The availability for readily used building materials of high standards is not always available. Like, for example, if you want to buy a high quality molding, flooring, doors, what we want is to have companies investing more money in stocking finished material that was cured, seasoned, dried properly. A lot of times we try to rush it and we get fresh sawn material, put it in our house, and then it attract bugs and termites and so on.
Yes, the government had a facility in Kingston. I remember buying Wamara wood for my walls and floors from that facility. Does government still operate those kilns to dry and cure the wood?
No, we've been finding more, and which is a good thing. I think government is doing less in terms of getting involved with private sector business, and private sector they've been facilitating infrastructure and locations for us. And you raise a good important point. What I would like to suggest and recommend more that we should have, it's going to be industrial zones, industrial centers and hubs where businesses can come together, like what you're seeing in agro-processing, farm to market type of approach, where the government has been providing packaging facilities for businesses in the agro-processing. We need similar initiatives for wood products. So that way you can have persons who cannot afford to have a warehouse or have a facility to operate their wood processing business, that they can actually get a facility that does not cost much, and then the sawmills can supply to that facility. So like you're having an industrial hub, but focus on that particular type of building materials. I mean, think about furniture. If you want to buy furniture now, you have to go to various small bottom house operations. And if you go to a big company, you're going to be spending a lot of money. But can you imagine if we were to have an industrial site where the government is facilitating space at a reasonable price for those who are interested in actually doing manufacturing, right? And bringing down the energy costs, sharing in some of the storage and security costs, and internet connectivity costs, and so on. This way, you're having an approach that's enabling smaller businesses to be able to scale up gradually and to produce products. So that way, the bigger companies can help start supplying raw materials, not just logs, but supplying, I would say, a dimensional rough sawn timber that will go into the processing. You mentioned drying before. Yes, they used to have big mega drying facilities, but we don't need huge facilities to do drying, because then that's tying up more energy costs. If you're having an oven that, let's say, the kiln, it is to dry lumber, and that kiln has to dry 30, 40,000 board feet of wood at a time. What is happening there? You're having to spend more money, more energy to fill up that kiln before you turn it on to dry the lumber. So we need smaller kilns within various regions of the country, and empower private sector to run and operate those kilns, because many times when the government operate those facilities, and we've learned from lessons before, it didn't work, because then you have areas that the government would have invested money, and then you have a lot of white elephants sitting down there with donors' money and so on. So what we want to do is act to see active private sector participation when we're having facilities provided by the government that it is being run by private sector somewhere or the other. The government is just facilitating the land, the infrastructure, the for that business.
Yes, regional kilns are an excellent point you made there. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. We are out of time at the moment, so we will go right to Mr. Khan's closing remarks.
For me, I would just like to sum it up by saying collaboration. Collaboration. We cannot do it alone. We need to have a mentality of knowing how we can work together, joint venture together, and build businesses together. The market is huge, and we've seen older generation businesses that are not continuing. We want to see more joint venture and more collaboration in Guyana. We want our diaspora to collaborate with our existing Guyanese businesses, and let us work together in unity and building these industries that are happening in the country. I mentioned earlier about having a less scarcity mentality, whereby we're just busy competing among ourselves, and look and having an abundance mentality where Guyana is not just your market; it is the entire world.
Okay.
Perfect.
I think more time. Shamizu, do we have any time for questions?
Um, we we really don't have much questions. We have more suggestions out. I know Lapanch is asking for the website for GMSA. If Mr. Khan can give us that website, if we
Yes,
have one.
www.gmsa.org, or you can just Google gmsa.org and it will come up. The Guyana Manufacturers.
GMSA.org.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Um, yeah, it was more suggestions, Dr. Tara. There is
Okay.
no specific questions at this point, so we will go ahead and unless you guys have any questions, we can close the program.
Any
Dr.
closing
Tara?
remarks?
All right.
He
So
had that already.
yeah.
Just go ahead and close it. Shamila.
Thank you very much to our
Thank you.
entire
Okay.
panel for your time this evening.
Okay.
Thank you to our viewers and to our guests. Thank you so much for taking the time. You have given us some very important information that I think this program really needed. And we thank you for that. We thank you for your time. We look forward to having you again on the Guyana Dialogue. Until next time, I am your host, Shamiza Ali. It is a pleasure. See you very soon. Good evening, everyone.
And
Good
thank
evening.